Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Amy Griffin, the Deputy Executive Director of VAS, here with Cindy, and we're thankful that you're here with us this morning. We have a great webinar to share with you today. It's with Apogee, one of our VAS partners, and it's on titled "On Brand: How to Create a Distinctive School Division Brand." I know we've got upcoming weather coming, so we appreciate you all being here because I know your life is probably frantic right now as you prepare. But there's nothing better to talk about than communication and being on brand at this time. So I'm going to turn it over to Hamid Darvish and Greg Trachetta from Apogee to start this webinar.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for, as Amy said, I know you guys are very busy this week. I'm a former chief communications officer, and I know how weather impacts everything. But what we're going to talk about today is about money, because brand is really, when at the root of it, it's about enrollment and revenue. So, Hamid, you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's go. My name's Greg. I'm Apogee's strategic communications advisor. So I work with school districts around the country, do a lot of these presentations, and really try to take our data that we do and what we create and synthesize it in a way that you can act on it. Before joining Apogee a year and a half ago, I was a chief communications officer for four different school districts in Florida and South Carolina, including a stint in higher ed. I have three well-adjusted adult kids that are out of the house, still in the house. I have three dogs, including a 180-pound Great Dane not seen here. But that little guy there, Bagel, he loves to wear running medals. And when we're talking about brand, this is my wife and I at SeaWorld on Thanksgiving. This turtle understands brand. I mean, if he's at SeaWorld, he's got a wave. We've got about 10 pictures of this turtle just understanding the assignment.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Hamid Darvish. I'm based out of here in DC, and over the last 10 years, I've worked across several industries. The majority of my role has been seeking and building and kind of implementing projects and partnerships and solutions. Moved from the Canada to the US about 2.5 years ago when I met my wife, now living in DC. And I guess, yeah, as brand, my brand is I'm an adventure seeker, and so it can range from like getting to the Stanley Cup playoffs, buying a ticket last minute, escape rooms, or like somehow ending up in Hawaii with my wife on a last minute decision. But excited to get this going.
Ending up in Hawaii on a last minute decision is never a bad thing. All right, let's talk about where the research. We're going to talk to you. Much of what we're going to touch on today is in our School CEO magazine. If you're not familiar with School CEO, it's the research arm of Apogee. This magazine was built because nothing like this existed. As school list leaders, as district leaders, what's your go-to to get information about how to be more efficient and more productive in your job? So, On Brand was our summer of 2025 editions. You can find that at schoolceo.com. Our agenda today, real simple. One, why do brands work? Two, is your brand working for you? We're going to dive real deep into that. If it's not, how do you build a better brand? And then once you do build it, how do you connect your brand to all your customers? So let's start with what is a brand? Because a lot of people, I spend a lot of time in schools and they're like, well, we've got a theme for the year and we got a slogan and we got a shirt. That's all great, but that's not brand. Brand is a perception. It's a collection of perception, feelings, and associations that customers have about a company or its offerings, right? But it's also branding is a process. Branding is the strategic process of shaping a brand's identity and more importantly, influencing how it's perceived by your target audience. All of you as superintendent and district leaders know you spend a lot of time in this space and sometimes probably don't feel heard, right? Your brand is your identity, and this is what makes it crucial. This includes the visual elements. Yes, the logo, the colors, the packaging, but it's the intangible elements like your brand voice, your values, and your personality. A lot of school districts don't think that way, right? Businesses spend a lot of time in this space because their brand voice is everything. But all of this has to work together to create a cohesive image. Hamid, what's that picture?
That's funny. Before I moved to the US, I had no idea. But as soon as I moved to Chick-fil-A,
That's the Lord's chicken right there. This image to me is a perfect brand picture. Let's dissect it for a minute if we can, right? $1 million smile, that Chick-fil-A red shirt with a safety vest. You can tell she's in the drive-through line. Now, Chick-fil-A is known for its customer service, but I will tell you this, every elementary school principal I ever meet with, I tell them the first thing you need to do is go to your local Chick-fil-A and learn how to run your car line better because these guys get it, right? They are efficient. I'm not going to tell you their chicken's better than anybody else's. I mean, fast food chicken's fast food chicken, right? But I'll tell you this, Chick-fil-A makes more money in 6 days than McDonald's makes in seven. How is that possible? It's possible because they have a commitment to quality and it exudes in everything they do. Yes, they have fresh ingredients and quality food, but I mean, have you had a bad experience at a Chick-fil-A that wasn't rectified immediately? Now, that's why brands work, right? Great brands create trust, credibility, and consistency. More importantly, they create an emotional connection with the customer. So that is much more than a slogan, mission, or value statement. It's really a gut feeling thing, right? And great brands create results. None of these companies on the right exist if their brand was not creating results. They'd be gobbled up by somebody else. Now, this is the part where we're going to start getting a little interactive for a minute. What's the difference between Walmart and Target? You can put it in the chat. You can unmute. What's the difference?
Yeah, we have a small enough group. Just come off mute
So
or put it in chat.
Price. Since it says price, sure. But to the women in the call today, I bet you spend more time at Target than you do Walmart. At least Target's betting on it because that's how they built it, right? It's an experience, it's a feel thing. People often say to me, Target just feels better, right? Starbucks, Jessica, we're gonna get to that one in just a second. But Walmart, if we're being honest, Walmart's closer to the Department of Motor Vehicles than it is boutique, right? We go there for price. We go there. They wear vests that say they're happy to serve you, but I'm not sure the experience matches that. Right. I actually had an experience in a Walmart in Georgia where I went through, this was before self-checkout, right? Because now we've taken the personality completely out of stores. But I went through an entire transaction without the cashier ever saying a word to me. When it came time, Amy, you're nodding, you had that one too. When I went to check out, she just looked down and I put my card in and I was done and I walked away and I'm like, I didn't know that was even possible, right? Like there was just no care or concern. I can also tell you, I've walked into the front desk of an elementary school and had the same experience. And that's the scary part. I write a lot of articles on LinkedIn. If you want to follow me, some stuff will challenge you. But some schools are closer to the DMV than they are Disney, and that's a problem. Now let's talk about Disney for a minute. I just came off a Disney cruise this fall, and I live in Orlando, Florida, so I'm well familiar with the Disney brand and their park experience. I'm telling you, their cruise experience was a whole nother level, and here's why. How many of you have international teachers working in your buildings right now because you can't find enough quality teachers? That's the Disney model. But here's what Disney does with them. Their brand does not suffer. I was on a boat. There was not a US based worker on this boat. And the experience was even better than the parks. Like that's training, that's customer service, that's branding. That is a relentless pursuit of what makes us special. And your enrollment process, if I pick up the phone and I call somebody, who's going to answer? I'm guessing it's not your top customer service people. Enrollment tends to be data-driven people that aren't exactly people-focused at times. That's a problem point we'll talk about later. Jessica, you brought up Starbucks. Starbucks, I'm not a coffee drinker, but I will go to a Starbucks and I will sit there and I'll bring my laptop and I'll work because it's a whole vibe, right? It's like home away from home. Now, I'm not here to tell you their coffee is the best coffee out there. I think many coffee connoisseurs, I mean, you're a coffee drinker. Is it the best?
no, definitely not.
Right. I mean, people in New England will tell you it's Dunkin' Donuts, no question. There's one on every corner. But that's where we start getting into the space. iPhone, is it the best phone out there? Google and Samsung for years have probably had better features, but people don't line up for their phones. People don't sit out there, oh my God, I've got to have it, write the check, right? That's a feeling thing. Amazon, you can have something delivered. I ordered something last night. It said this was 10 o'clock at night. I was ordering something. I could have it delivered between 7 and 11 a.m. if I ordered within the next 7 hours. That means that product had to be sitting in a warehouse down the street, right? But Amazon has mastered whatever you want as fast as you can get it. That's their brand. Now, it's time for a little bit more of a test. Jessica and Crystal, you jumped in, but I want to know what's your favorite brand. You can put it in the chat, you can unmute and tell us what it is, because then Hamid's going to ask you the follow-up question. Why? Why do you use their product? How do you emotionally connect with them? And then the fascinating psychology experiments right here. Did your parents use that brand? Okay, so now we're going to flip the script though. Now that we've identified with what we identify with as brands, what about your district brand? What is it? How do people connect to it? Yes, there's emotional. Now, I could also argue there is not a district brand. There's 42 school brands that then combine to make the district brand. But people really connect to your schools, and in which ways? And how do we stoke that? Because here's three questions that I want to leave you with today. One, is your brand driving student enrollment? If it's not positively driving enrollment and your enrollment's down, Houston, we might have a brand problem. Is your brand impacting teacher recruitment and retention? Same thing. There's only so many teachers to go around right now. You're all paying roughly the same amount of money and have the same PD opportunities. Why would they choose your county over the one next door? And then the last one is the one that often gets overlooked. Is your brand raising money for your schools? Correct me if I'm wrong, but you're probably one of the largest employers in your town and county. Your businesses should be fighting at your door to get involved and get access to your students and staff. I used to coach my principals all the time. You want to build a garden? Tag Home Depot and Lowe's in your social media post and watch how fast they show up with tools. And it works. So if these three things aren't happening right now, we really need to have a conversation about your brand. And that's where the mirror comes in. For the rest of this, I want you to take your superintendent hat off for a minute, and I want you to put your parent hat on because parents are completely overwhelmed with what's going on. And one of the things we're seeing in our research is they are seeing far less than you think they're seeing, right? Whether it's social media, whether it's even in the direct message. How many text messages do you get a day, right? It's just overwhelming. How many emails? So that's where we really need to dive in because every element combines to form your school and district brands. And I love this table. This is out of the magazine. It's the school branding periodic table of elements. And I want to point you to the top left corner, which is customer service. Think back to science class, chemistry, if you will. If you have a carbon molecule and you have two oxygen molecules, you have carbon dioxide, right? That's safe. Take one of those oxygen molecules away, you have carbon monoxide, and that will kill you. And I think customer service is exactly that. If customer service and enrollment marketing are not your two top focuses right now, I need to steer you in that direction quick and fast. And here's why, because they are brand. That customer service component, if I asked you to point a direction at the one school that you worry about when people are calling or walking in, what their experience is going to be, you may immediately think about the principal, good, bad, or incredible. But really, it's that frontline staff. Um, that's where we got to look at and put all of this together because so much of this goes in to make this equation. But that's not it, right? That would be plenty to factor in. But now we've got sub brands that actually impact the district brand. You have Here's the thing. So you've got schools, right? Each school has its own brand. Some are on the rise, some are holding, some are carrying a district. Your students have a brand, how they perform academically. You have athletics. No question, a state championship in any sport can make your district look more appealing. You have your employees brand. What are they saying in the grocery store to people when people find out they work for your district? It's always, we have that vocal minority internally and externally. And how do we counteract that? You as superintendents have a brand. If you're the fifth superintendent in your district in the last 5 years, that's having a brand impact. And it's not positive because turnover and churn do that. But if you've had stability, that absolutely is positively impacting your brand. And then I save the best for last, which is the school board members, because nothing is having a greater impact on school district brand right now than what's going on in our school boards. If you have new change agents on your school board who are actively shooting at your district, saying this isn't good and that's not good, and I'm here to fix and change that, that is greatly having a negative impact on your brand. Because if the people running it are bashing it, what's the community going to think? So we've got to tell our stories, and we're going to dive much deeper into that. But right now, we want to put you through a test. Hamid, run them through this.
Okay, so if you answer yes to five or more, we look at exploring a rebrand. Two to four suggests brand refresh, and zero to one focuses on campaigns. So, a couple questions you want to ask yourself is one, can staff state our unique value in one sentence? Can every staff member from the bus driver to the teacher to the communications person in your school state that district? Our identity is inconsistent across schools and channels. Is enrollment flat or declining year over year? Parent trust, advocacy, which way is it trending? Looking at your school website or social, does their voice, do they match from the classroom inside and out? Um, Looking at competitors' messaging, does it feel clearer, more modern than ours? Neighboring districts? Um, is our brand hard to use? Are there no templates? There's no standard. Accessibility or mobile issues keep popping up, and or do we have detractors more than advocates?
I want to point you guys back to number five, because this one to me is the most tragic scenario. If you have the academic outcomes and you have the classroom experience to carry your district, phenomenal. Because so many of us, I can tell you, districts I worked at in the past, I didn't have anything to market. Like we were down in a lot of areas, and I went to my superintendent and I said, "What can we brag about? Point me to the data." And so if you have that, you're three-quarters of the way there. Does your communications effort, does your storytelling match those outcomes? And we're being that bold and tell it. If you take anything from me today, brand is attached to being bold and telling your story, not letting your vocal minority and your critics frame it. You frame it. So if you came in at five or more, we're going to have a hard conversation. Love to have more of a conversation with you after this, if that's where you land. Two to four, you're going to do a refresh. Zero to one, you just need a campaign in a certain area. Well, here's some more factors, right? If you're going to build a better district brand, you got to be looking at school choice pressure. Dropping birth rates is one thing. School choice pressure is a whole nother. Enrollment decline, stagnant inquiries. Are families, much like Hamid said, with your staff struggle to explain how you're different? If families can't begin to explain how you're different from nearby charters, virtual, private, and homeschool options, that's on us. That's a lack of communication. I can't tell you nationwide how many charter school operators I've seen put out a one-page pamphlet talking about classic values, uniforms in students, teaching Latin, and tighter security, and people are jumping for this. Like we offer all that and then some. Maybe not the Latin, but we have so much more. We have to be able to get that out there. Wayne, you said a couple of things I really like. Looking at your communication and using the NSPER rubric is a huge step in the right direction. Also, when you're looking at enrollment, when you want to talk about competitive pressure, let me take it to Florida for a second, where I've spent a lot of time. I worked in Florida. Florida has universal vouchers, and that means a $9,000 FTE per student is going out the door as soon as a parent chooses to walk. So districts down here are losing 3 to 10,000 students this year, which is in the 30 to $50 million range. And they're having to have conversations no superintendent wants to have. Because now, Orange County, which is Orlando here, is looking at hiring a third-party marketing firm to come in and try to turn the tide. It's a little late for that, right? They didn't make, and that's an A-rated school district, and those challenges, and I know Virginia, you're feeling a lot of that too, but really keep your eye on Florida because of everything I study nationwide, this is ground zero for what could be coming. Okay, so fragmentation of your brand. If you have schools and departments that are using their own logos, colors, and voice, or they DIY whatever they want to do because your current brand system is no good. And then I love this one too, the perception versus reality gap. Whether you have survey data or you're just starting to hear anecdotal evidence from the community members you talk to that show a lower declining trust and advocacy despite strong academic outcomes, we got a brand problem. And then if your brand hasn't been refreshed in the last decade, no business will let that go, right? I know it's getting cool for business to go back to retro logos and retro campaigns, but Coke doesn't let their brand go for a decade without touching it. The logo might not change, but the brand certainly updates every Christmas and every Super Bowl. Okay, I want to give you this example because this is actually a district where I led a brand redo. This is Collier County in Florida, Naples, Florida. If you've heard of Naples, beautiful. It's beautiful this time of year. On the left is exactly what I'm talking about with something that hasn't been touched in decades. That is the official, still is the official school district logo for the District School Board of Collier County, right? And the only place you'd see that logo is two places. One, on board documents, and two, on lawsuits. Community doesn't identify with that. That feels old, stodgy. Would you want to put that on a polo shirt and hand that out at a staff meeting? No, you wouldn't. So when I got there, I immediately said, "This is a problem." Superintendent agreed, and we modernized it, right? How many logos have the book and flame of knowledge, right? Like I think 90% of school districts have some variation of that. So we wanted to keep that because one of the things in branding is you don't want to deviate from what you have that's good, but you want to make it better. So on the right, we came up with four different versions of this. And as a district, we didn't care which one they chose, but we let the community vote. And we put it on our website and we sent it out to parents and they voted, and this is the one they chose. The other key part of this is people referred to the district as CCPS. Like that's how they said it. internally and externally. So that has to be the brand. Yes, there'll be a legal name, but let's go with this. That's now on signs and shirts, and I led that 14 years ago, which means it's probably time for a refresh, but it's still going strong and it still identifies. Me, take them closer to home.
Yeah, this is a school that we worked with in down in Chesapeake. Well, and so kind of similar to what Greg was saying is the one on the left was from the 90s. Like I think it carried the consistent stuff of the bird, the flame, maybe a book. That could be a bird, I think.
Yeah, it's a
And
dove.
it's a dove. And so talking to Rachel, who actually led this, it was her dad who had originally designed this logo, what, 30, 40 years ago. And now she had joined Chesapeake and taken over communications. And they wanted to keep certain elements of the past, but really modernize it. And so instead of a dove, they went with what is actually in Chesapeake, this kind of bird. And so they've really refreshed their logo, I think not too long ago, actually, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. But it's really like now stuck to this brand and it's everywhere from the t-shirts to the building sign, everywhere through the community.
And one little cool callback on this is her dad was the one who designed the original logo, and she brought him back into the board meeting, and he designed the second one. So again, a nice homage to history. Before we move on, um, well, we'll get to this in a minute. I want to take you to Georgia real quick. So this is Dalton, Georgia. If you've never heard of Dalton, Georgia, it used to be the carpet capital of the world before laminate took over, I guess. But Dalton had a brand new executive director of communications come in, and the logo at the top right was their logo. So you can see there's 10 leaves on a Dalton tree, and each of the leaves represents a school. Okay, she's like, no, that's not good enough. So what was really cool that they didn't tap into was all 10 of these schools have a cat themed mascot. And Kendra, their comms chief, had come out of athletic marketing, and you can see the influence in what she did. She said, "No, we need to tie this together a bit better." So she put a scratch mark in the D on the Dalton. That is their official district logo. That's not an athletic logo. That is their logo. And she went with, they kept an academic slogan, learn, lead, and succeed, but her marketing slogan is making your mark. And the goal is, so one, the cat scratch and the D is making your mark, but it's about students making their mark, teachers making their mark on students, and the school system making its mark on the community, which I think is a beautiful connection if you come through all the way with your brand. So if you're going to do it, there's a lot of science behind this. Just the same way if you were going to be changing anything on the academic side of the house, on the communication side of the house, this starts with research, right? We have to do stakeholder interviews, surveys of parents, students, taxpayers, people who don't have kids in your school but have a say. What is the overall perception of the brand? Where do we want to move it? Then how do we position and message it? That's a clear brand promise. You got to look at parent personas you want to target, proof of performance points, and then tone and voice guidelines for staff. Then you have to enable it. If you do a brand, you should have templates and brand guides that very clearly show your schools how to use this and how your departments are to use it so that you don't have any DIY going on, even with the new stuff. Then how you roll it out. Doesn't all have to go at once. You can start slow. You start internal, and then you start with the signage. You start with the district logos and websites. And then you get to the stuff like stationery, right? You don't have to throw away all the old paper and have become a tracking your tax dollar story for the money wasted. We'll just replace it as we get to it. But then we have to measure it. In communications, we have something called the RACE process: research, analysis, then communicate, then evaluate, then start over. And that evaluate and measure piece is critical. Is it working? Where is it landing? Where is it not landing? Where do we need to better describe it? Up
Greg,
in New
before
Jersey,
we,
yeah.
I think Elizabeth asked a great question about like, what about brands that are less than 10 years old and like, what is considered changing it too often?
That is a great question. I would point you to this. It goes back to that research phase. It could be 2 years old and not working. It really has to do with, and sometimes the community shifts. Sometimes the politics are shifting so fast that it really moves on you. But you need to evaluate, is this landing? Is this something that the community can identify with? Does it resonate? Does it properly capture who we are? And the biggest part of that, Elizabeth, honestly, is you don't have to change so much. Usually it's more that we're just not telling the brand story enough. Because in a void of information, people will make up their own narrative, especially your critics. So if your storytelling systems are in place, if people at all the schools, at the district departments are pushing out your success, that should shape the brand. And every piece of without going too deep down a rabbit hole. We spend 80% of our time doing process communications, telling parents how to do school. We don't spend nearly enough time telling them why they should choose that school and why they should keep choosing it and not consider that charter school or that virtual option that's popping up. The brand has to be intertwined in all of that messaging. Every message I used to send out, I would say, we can brag and we can boast and we can say, this is another reason why you should choose Collier Public Schools. This success. In fact, our hashtag always had success in it because I wanted to constantly pound, we are successful. Every message you send out should have some hint of success to it. Even when you, because we do it a lot with test scores, right? My favorite one is when we talk about we're above the state average in this test score. And I always look at people and go, so we're mediocre? What are we saying? Right? Just because we're better than half the districts doesn't mean we're any good. So framing of the message, framing of it from a brand point of view is critical. So don't change it until you've done all of that work and are able to evaluate it. I want to talk about Chesapeake again real quick because I don't think those slides are in this presentation. What Chesapeake learned in their brand analysis when they were looking at it, they were at doing their rounds of research and meeting with parents to see what they needed to incorporate. And a Hispanic mother stood up and about knocked them over. And she said something very simple that I'll never forget. She said, our schools are not equal. The schools on the other side of town with the rich kids have much better websites. They have better communication. They learn about opportunities faster. And the support for that came in where there was a sign up for like a STEM camp and it was district wide. But that principal lagged on messaging. And so those kids didn't get the opportunity. And that stuck in that woman's brain. And that's why she fired on them. So when Chesapeake went to redesign their websites and all their communication tools, they realized this is an equity problem, right? You don't usually look at it through that lens, but it absolutely is. Because if the PTA or PTO at that school is supporting that school with more money, they might have better resources. So their websites are all identical within their brand family now, but their communication is as well. So Chesapeake learned, don't rely on the principals to send out those messages. That has to come at the district level with one tool. So everybody gets the message at the same time because that's equity, right? So that's a really powerful lesson, especially right in your backyard. Take it in New Jersey real quick. This is a bigger story in the magazine if you want to read about it. We won't spend much time here. But Dr. Nathan Fisher learned a valuable lesson. I don't want to be the guy who destroys history, right? If I'm going to come in and redo a brand, you're going to have to figure out where the opposition will be because some people are really attached to things and they don't let go. But he had a really cool way to evolve this brand. Top right is the old black and white 1970s logo. Bottom right is the improvement. Because in Roselle, their slogan, first in light, first in education, comes from Thomas Edison. They were the first community to have the incandescent light bulb. So do you see how much better they captured it in their new brand and logo versus their old brand? And Nathan's right when he says they could see I understood the essence of what the school community was built on. I think there's great opportunities for new superintendents and districts to bring substantive change that moves it forward because let's be honest, superintendents need wins, right? We're like NFL coaches. If we don't win, what happens? But at the same time, we don't want to go too fast. And we want to make sure that we really understand the community and reflect that. And I think they did a great example of it. Now, there's two ways you can do this. There's a house of brands or there's a one district brand. So in Denton, Texas, they came along. They have 45 schools that are really well entrenched, and some of these high schools have brands that lasted longer than the district. So they realized, no, there's no sweeping change coming here. We just need to rein in and make sure that there's consistency. So one of the things they did really cool is they made sure all the printing and all the communication came back through the communications department so it could be checked. I would tell you that the tools you're using to communicate should have an approval function that somebody at the district can look at. And that's one of the things that we provide that is a point of difference in the storytelling piece. Burrillville is on the other end of the spectrum. Burrillville is in Rhode Island. It's a district about this big. I'm from Rhode Island. I can pick on Burrillville. But in Rhode Island, you could move 15 minutes and be in 3 different school districts. So Burrillville had a problem. They had a problem of losing enrollment. So the superintendent came in and he said, I'm going to fix this. We have less than 10 schools. We're going to all be the Broncos. One mascot, one brand, the entire district. This way, from pre-K to graduation, you're a Bronco. And there's some identity attached to that. Now, they were losing kids at other points. And then as soon as he made this transition within the first year, his retention numbers went up. So it really is all about enrollment and identity. I'll keep pointing you back to those two things. I want to take you to Durham, North Carolina, really quick. This is a district I've worked with over the last year. They've replaced everything they do. But talk about tying things together. Do you see how the colors and the logo? This is their newsletter on the left. On the top right is one of their high school websites, and the bottom right is their district page. Everything's tied together. So wherever you land, you know you're talking to Durham, right? We have this problem in education where we hire so many of these outside vendors that have so many apps and so many things that aren't named our district, and it confuses parents. But Durham in the last year has really brought it to the center and said, we are a single source of truth. Wherever you look, you'll know it's us. There's no question, not making it hard on parents to get the information they need and understand where it's coming from. Take you to Texas real quick. This is Klein ISD. It's another one that I've worked with over the last year. They rolled this out. Do you see their brand? This is 3 elements from their website homepage. This is not how it's laid out. I just grabbed them. Promise to purpose. Choose excellence. Oh, you want to know why to choose Klein ISD? Let's let our students reason 69, 51, 63, 32. Let's let our students tell you why your kid should be here in their own words. So powerful. That's not marketing. That's not communications. That's brand, right? They are screaming excellence, and they're letting their students scream their own excellence. So powerful. Duval County, Florida. If you want to see anybody that understands brand and enrollment, I will point you to Jacksonville, Florida, Duval County. This is the best website I have ever seen when it comes to making an argument for why I, as a parent, should enroll my child in your school. Again, these are just 4 boxes we pulled off their homepage. The Duval Schools difference. Duval delivers, a Florida A-rated district. Here's 5 metrics that should tell you why you should choose if you're a little more analytical. And they honestly have a box called More Reasons. Like, this website is a tour de force. It just keeps going, and you scroll and you scroll, and there's more student stories, and there is no yard sale going on their website. What do I mean by a yard sale? If I look at your website, there's probably on your homepage, there's a whole bunch of different competing priorities. Everybody wants space on the homepage. No, the homepage has to do 2 things and do it exceptionally well. Recruit students and recruit staff. That's it. And Duval went all in on this. So their homepage looks like a college homepage. It's all about enrollment. It's all about making the argument that we're incredible, and they're bold about it, and it's working. Make sense? Okay. If you go down this road, control and consistency are critical. Hamid, tell them.
And so it's looking at you want to have the consistency across all your different schools from the district to the brand, from the district to the individual school. So same improve logos, slogans, colors used. Your hexacode 211 should be the same at your district to the same blue that you see inside the schools. When you're looking at brand control, it kind of means the same thing, like setting the standard. Like people shouldn't be going in and using different fonts, different colors. Looking at trademarks. Trademarks work with your lawyers who you have to make sure you have that, your legal team. And then expertise, putting the right people in the positions to do that. Your communications department should be controlling the messaging and everything else. If there's content coming up to them, they should have the final say or the final touch on that content before it goes out.
And brand changing is a year-long project. If you don't have a strong comms chief, don't do this, because your principals are going to need the support. The teachers and departments are going to need the support. There's a lot of coaching that goes on inside of this to make sure it's done right. I've seen plenty of people do this too fast, too strong, and it fails. And a year later, it's a mess. Okay, back to Chesapeake. I was talking about earlier how they had to. Chesapeake didn't even have a district identity. I spent a lot of time. There's a case study on our website if you want to read more about them, which is a fascinating, one of the more fascinating stories I've ever had the chance to tell. But you can see from their school district logo, see how everything falls within the family, but still it has its individuality to it, right? That's powerful. It's all there. Here's the websites I was referring to earlier. The top 5 are some of their schools. The bottom one is the district page. There is no question that these are all in the same family just from looking at them. That's what you want. You want people to know where they've landed. I want to take you to Edmond, Oklahoma. I had the chance to do this presentation with Jeff Burdock, their comms chief there. Their rollout plan is one to be modeled after and emulated. And here's why. What he landed on this screen is critical. Your departments are going to be really excited about having a new brand, and they're going to want to run with it, and they're going to want to produce logos, t-shirts, and signs. No, 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 no. Part of the brand build is giving them all those resources. So your admin, your child nutrition, comms, athletics, they get all their logos. for their departments, including the color variations in the brand package. There's no work at the school level on this. Let me prove it to you. Here's each of their schools. As Hamid was saying, the Pantone color is the Pantone color, and don't mess with it, right? The Bulldog is the Bulldog. It's all right here. When they rolled this out, they're building level administrators, and let's be honest, we cannot put another ounce of work on a building level administrator. They're buried. So if you do this and you build all this and you hand it to them with clear directives, it's not hard. In fact, it makes it much more simple to communicate. I also love what they did here, still at Edmond. Look here, second one down, the Sequoia Middle School business card. See how it has the district logo and the school logo on it? This was a subtle nuance that I think is really great. It means they thought of everything. How many of your psychologists, your crisis interventionists, your facilities people work at the district and at schools? Well, if they have a business card or they have an email signature and it doesn't have the school logo on it, a parent will not know that they're from that school. So little details like this for everybody. Think of everything. I have a term I like. It's called admire and acquire. You don't have to, if you decide you want to do a brand rollout, you don't have to have your internal team reinvent the wheel. These districts all have it built and they're happy to share it with you and they'll save you months of time. You just personalize it for your district. Okay, if you built it, now comes the critical part. You've got to connect it to all your customers. That includes students, that includes certainly staff and the community. So if you look at this, this picture right here, again, another great brand image. I love talking about brand images. When pictures speak on their own, that's power. I don't have to tell you where Middle Bucks Institute is or what they do based on this picture, do I? And I love that it's a stereotype buster because she's the one in the picture, right? This picture says so much. Here's what it doesn't tell you. Mark Cavell, the administrative director, was at a conference with some students, and he got back the next day, and one of the students from the conference walked in and said, "Hey, Dr. Mark, do you realize that if you take the word ambition, and if you look in the middle of it, there's the M, B, I, and T of Middle Bucks Institute of Technology." He said, "No, I haven't thought of that at all." She goes, "I think we should do something with it." And boy, did they. You can see the neon sign that's now in their lobby. That is their brand, ambition. They're a trade school. So it'd be one thing if a student came up with an idea. It's a whole nother when you now empower the students to go tell that brand story, which is what they've done. Their students are the most prolific consumers and producers of social media. Your students can carry this load. You have marketing and graphic design classes in your high schools that could, journalism programs, yearbook staffs that could do all of this and tell your story for you. You're not going to have to ask the teachers to do it at all. Now, it needs an approval process, which is what Middle Bucks used Apogee for. We have, for whenever these students are creating content, it has an approval function that goes to somebody at the school or the district level that can look at it, reject it, edit it, or post it. Students don't have access to post on their own. But what this did is it's all about authenticity, right? I love when he says authenticity is our North Star. It's vital to share a clear message about the real work happening within our walls. And we know in CTE that there's outdated perceptions of what that is and certainly new expectations of what the future looks like for those programs because that's where the job market is. But what I love is it's a student-driven, identity-shaping, authentic brand message. You don't need to know any more than I just told you about Middle Bucks Institute, but if you had a student who's interested in this line of work, I think you'd put them in this school without even looking at their social media feed. Now, this part's critical too, building a strong employer brand. And I love the little cocktail napkin we have at the top right. This was in the magazine because your employer brand and your employee experience are two very different things at times. So to bring them in alignment, we've got to go on a discovery tour, which is everything your employees experience impacts your brands. Yes, it's salaries. Yes, it's PD, but it's more intangible like school culture and your staff's sense of belonging. We all know those principles that we would follow. If you move them to another building, there's teachers that want to go with them. There's APs that want to go with them. There's also principles that we want to avoid because the culture in a building is everything. But we have to define it at a district level too. We have to decide what values and priorities you want your school and district to be known for doing very well. But then you also have to be very clear on what you want people to know and remember about your schools. And that seems like a big target. So let's zero it in. You have to intentionally share stories about your employee experiences that reinforce the strengths of your brand. I went to a comms conference. Somebody mentioned NSPR earlier. As a superintendent, my former superintendent said the NSPR annual seminar is the best conference she's ever been to, and she's right. She went to a lot of them. And here's why. Is communication permeates everything. 3 years ago, I was at the NSPR conference, and a district did a presentation called How HR and PR Can Work Better Together. And it was all about this very point, your careers page. If I went to your websites right now and I looked at your careers page, it's probably a wall of writing with an application and all process communications. Is there anything on that career page that has an employee video talking about why they're excited to work at your school district? Is there anything in there talking about your culture? Is there anything from you on there besides a welcome talking about these are the kind of people we want to hire? These are the people I want on my team. These are what we aspire to be. Disney would do that. Starbucks is certainly doing that. Why aren't we? Because we've and this is and I went back from that conference to my school district and I immediately worked with HR and took over our careers page. And our careers page looks a lot like our homepage. And if you remember what I said the homepage has to do, it has to recruit staff and students. So how do you recruit them? You get them excited before they ever hit the application. I won't even talk about your application, but I'm guessing it's 16 pages of doom that frustrates people, much like the student application. So those are two things also that as a superintendent, I want you to go to your staff and go audit our application process for new students and staff and come back and tell me if that was frustrating. If it is, fix it. Because to do this, we have to close the authenticity gap. And that goes back to the cocktail napkin at the top right. The ultimate goal is to close the gap between the employer brand you're promoting and what your staff actually experiences each and every day. Because the one thing the website can't do is really peer back the curtain inside that school and say, what's it like to work there? Yeah, it'll be anecdotal evidence. But once I get in the building, I'm going to have one of two realizations. Wow, this is exactly what they said, or it's even better, or whoa, this isn't anything close to what I thought it was going to be. I'm out of here. And the schools that have high turnover have that kind of culture. If I walk into the lobby of any one of your schools in less than 10 seconds, I can analyze the culture of it. It's all there, the sights, the sounds, the interactions that permeate what's going on back behind the classroom walls. So we have to close the authenticity gap in our communication and in our recruitment. Now, anybody know what that is on the right? It is the hottest thing in sports right now. It's the hardest ticket to get. And it is the greatest example that public education needs to look at right now of where your future lies. Because that's the Savannah Bananas. That used to be a minor league baseball team, but now is a internationally touring group of 6 teams that is selling out NFL and Major League Baseball stadiums. Why? Because Jesse Cole is a genius, the CEO. He came in and he said something very simple. Baseball is boring. And if I have any baseball purists on the call today, my apologies, but let's be honest. Being in person at a game and having a hot dog and peanuts, that's a great experience. The ambiance is great, but the game was too slow for a lot of people. And that's where Jesse came in and said, we're changing the rules. We're changing everything. What you see on the right is a guy on stilts who actually pitches and hits on stilts. That's a kick line going on during a game. They changed the rules so that if a fan catches a foul ball, it's an out. Fans are part of the game. The game is limited to 90 minutes. That's it. So why is this a model that you should emulate for education? Because education fundamentally hasn't changed for 100 years. The way we teach has, what we're teaching has. But the overall experience for a parent and a student looks pretty similar. What if we flipped it the way Jesse Cole did and said, we need to look at everything from the student point of view? Now, I know I've sat in enough executive cabinet meetings where people say, if it's good for students, that's what we do. And that's partly true because I can point to 100 examples. And I had a habit of doing this in cabinet meetings going, whoa, wait a minute. We always say we're doing what's best for students, but this sounds like we're doing what's the least controversial move or won't piss off the teachers. And there's value in that. But at the end of the day, we're not sticking to our North Star of this is what's best for students. How many of you want to lead a rezoning effort? If kids are sitting on a bus for 60 minutes, that's best for students. That's not best for us as staff because it's going to hurt, right? I'm watching districts across the country having to close down schools because there's not enough students in them. There's big, heavy debates going on, but there's examples like this. So if we go back and we look at this example of how do we make it more fun? You guys do a great job in your schools every day. Principals are saints of building culture events and having school events. But I'm talking about a pure customer service focus at every level that exudes fun and excitement. Yes, there's so many rules we have to work around. There's so many state and federal requirements that are driving the fun out of education. How do we bring it back? How do we get that to permeate? Because the retention effort comes back to that too. Because here's the honest truth. As a school district, you're selling the same product as the district or school district down the street. We're all relatively the same. Their test scores might be as good, their teachers are just as qualified. Why should I choose you? Because as the pie gets smaller, that's what we're fighting over. As the birth rate goes down, there's less kids coming. We're going to have to compete. I actually had somebody in Wisconsin tell me last month, "You're saying we have to compete?" I'm absolutely saying you have to compete because parents are choosing. They're voting with their feet. And as state and federal law gives them more flexibility, as I described in Florida. Let me go back to that example. That 9,000 FTE I was talking about, if I pull three of my kids out of the school and I'm going to do virtual or I'm going to try this charter school, that's $27,000 I just took with me. A month into this experiment, I decide I was crazy and I'm putting them back in public education. That money does not go back to the school districts till the following academic year, which means you're now educating my three kids for free. So these are expensive decisions for those of you who are writing the checks. And that's why it's so important with branding that we are bold in telling our story. We are differentiating ourselves from our competition because that teacher, your PD isn't that much fundamentally better than the district next door. Your salary might be with less than $5,000 of a difference. They're going to vote based on what they see on your social media, what they feel talking to your employees, what they see on your careers page. That's what they're going to vote with. And if you get 10 more teachers because you did branding well, or you get 1,000 more students because you did branding really well, we're talking about impact. So it feels like something that's kind of extra, an add-on, the cherry on top, something more trivial, but it really isn't. It's fundamental to how you're going to function in the future. So I'll leave you with that. Open it up for any questions. If anybody has anything they want to talk more about, a little more clarity on, we'd love to have a conversation with you.